Dr. Day is on, and nobody cares about me. Everybody wants to see Dr. Day. And of course, my heart just sings when she is with us. So I am excited that today we get to talk about a very special subject. Let me start the record. So today we're going to be talking about reconciliation, letting go of this self-sabotage that we find a vicious cycle, and how to let it go and reconcile not only with ourselves, but with God or with somebody else. So today we're going to be talking about that with Dr. Day. So as you know, and I'm just going to get you started, it's time to tag somebody, text somebody, email somebody. They can watch us on YouTube or Facebook Live. That is the only way. People are telling me that they can't find my website anymore, or my Facebook page or my YouTube channel. So just know that it's up to you now. Do you help? Can you help me by spreading the good news? So today we have Dr. Day, and we're going to talk, you know what we're going to be talking about. So fasten your seatbelt because we're going to learn and grow together. Here we go, Dr. Day. It's time to dance.
The Lillian McDermott Show.
We love, we fear, bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough, and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be right here. Right here, and when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for you.
This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening and viewing friend. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who are tuning in to the classroom for the first time, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friends, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, as I often say, in a nice way, since 2013, Dr. Lorraine Day has been poking me in the eye and kicking me in the stomach, but always in a good way. She always wakes me up. And so yesterday we started the conversation with Valerie Burton about guilt. And I always say guilt and shame, they're like twin sisters. But yesterday we dove into guilt and the idea of guilt. Today's second part is with Dr. Lorraine Day. We're so excited every time she comes into the classroom because her dose of truth, sometimes people don't want to look at. And we talked about that yesterday, that, you know, we see the speck in our neighbor's eye, but we seldom can look at the plank in ours. And so this is almost part two, but not really, because today we're going to talk about self-sabotage. Self-sabotage that leads to, that we need to release, we need to let go of that so that we can start the process of reconciliation. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I'm so grateful that Dr. Day is in the classroom here to do just that. Welcome back, Dr. Day. Hasn't been that long, but it seems like forever since we've spoken to each other.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's always nice to be with you.
Yes, and now you're poking us all in the eye with the New Truth series, Book of Revelation, and everybody has been enjoying this. And for those of you who are watching for the first time or maybe have been thinking about it, we have recorded everything. And I love it when I get people that are signing up, even though we're going to be entering week 9 of a 12-week series. I love it when they say, can I start watching 1 through 2? Or they'll say, oh, I'm having troubles with the access of 8. We're having some technical glitches right now because of the system, but it should be all fixed before the end of the day, hopefully. And so with this all in mind, Dr. Day, I know that because of your dedication has been all about disease, but it's disease from the heart. You say that all disease starts in the heart. And that's why I thought, let's talk about self-sabotage and why you say that all disease starts in the heart.
Well, disease does begin in the heart because we want to do what we want to do rather than what we should be doing. When we talk about guilt and sabotaging ourselves, people don't recognize that most of the time that stems from selfishness. They're thinking about themselves. What about me? And how do I feel? And you have to get outside of yourself. And as I've said on the Revelation seminar, and when I've been on your program before, we always want to have a pity party. Oh, poor me. And I was abused when I was a child. And there's nothing bad about talking about it or acknowledging it. Mm-hmm. But when you make it an art form, then it destroys you. So what you've got to do is you've got to get outside of yourself and recognize that God is bringing you through a whole lot of trouble to bring you to him, because when things are going well, we never change. And what all of these things that happen to us should lead us to is humility and not self-pity. And there is a huge difference between humility and self-pity. And humility doesn't mean, oh, I'm so worthless. No, humility means that God's in charge of my life and I need to do what he says and not what I say. And as we were talking before the show started with, in the Oswald Chambers book, Daily Reader, called My Utmost for His Highest, there it is, yes. When you read that, he talks a lot about giving up our right to ourselves and giving it over to God. Remember, God says that you're the clay and I'm the potter. Now, every church teaches we have free will. But if we have free will, then God has lost control of his creation, and he couldn't answer a single prayer if he didn't have any control over anybody's life. And there are many areas in the Bible that show us clearly we don't have free will. God says he sets kings up and takes them down. How could they have free will? What we have to realize is that God created us, and God is responsible for the sin in the world. Oh, Christians hate to hear that. Oh no, Satan's responsible. Well, then did Satan do something that God didn't want and he surprised and disappointed God? No, Satan is a created being. The idea of sin was God's idea. It was God's idea to put sin in the world. That's why Jesus died on the cross. He says, I did this, I'm going to take the hit. Because as you look in the first chapters of Genesis, there was never a time that we see Adam and Eve thanking God for the beautiful garden they lived in. They didn't know anything else. We never see them thanking God for their perfect health. They never knew anything else. We never see them thanking God that they could walk with him in the cool of the day. They never knew anything else. So they could not appreciate good until they had some recognition of evil in their lives. That doesn't mean that evil is good. It just means that when we have some association with evil and recognize we don't want it, then we can turn to God. So when we have sinned, all of us have sinned. And people say, I was talking to a woman just the other day and she said, oh, I'm such a sinner. I don't know if I'm going to be saved. Well, what you're doing is you're blaspheming God. When you say that, oh, well, I'm such a sinner. I don't know that I can be redeemed. I don't know that I can I don't know that I can do this. You're blaspheming God because God says nothing is impossible with God. So God can save you. God can bring you out of the pit. And the only thing you have to think about is how long do you want to be miserable before you start climbing out of the pit, hanging on to the hand of God. So you can wallow around in your guilt. You can wallow around in self-pity until you finally decide, this is not a good life to live. I want to get out of here. So what you have to do, you acknowledge what you've done. You go to the people that you have harmed and you ask for their forgiveness, unless they don't want to talk to you. If they don't want to talk to you, then you don't have to go to them. You don't have to just try to take them by the lapels when they don't want you around, but you forgive them in your heart, or you write them a letter asking for their forgiveness for what you've done to them. Then you don't have to have a face-to-face contact, which may be nothing but an argument. But you have to truly forgive. And I don't know your heart. Lillian doesn't know your heart. God knows your heart. He knows if you've really forgiven them or not, and if you really want forgiveness from them. He knows your heart. You can't fool God. And so some woman just wrote to me this week, and she said, well, I've forgiven everybody. I made a video and I forgave everybody. And I wrote to her and I said, what a cop-out. You know, you can't do that.
That's where you poke somebody in the eye.
Right.
Poke them in the eye.
It said, you've got to go to them individually or write them a letter. You can't just make a video and say, I forgive everybody, or for everybody forgive me. That's not the way to do it. That is not a person with humility. So the thing is that humility, there are a lot of people with arrogance today. You know, they people think that shame is bad. The Bible talks about shame being good. Shame is good if you recognize, I should never have done that. I should never have done that. That's the way we learn. If people have no shame for lying and stealing and adultery and if they have no shame for it, they just think it's just fine. And so I can keep doing it again and again. Shame is what we need to recognize that we have to change our ways. But the shame shouldn't be so severe that we keep painting it on ourselves every day. That's not the way it is. We say, I am resolved to change the way I behaved. But if you keep beating yourself up about it, that becomes actually selfish and self-centeredness. Oh, I'm so evil, God couldn't possibly save me. That's self-pity. And that undermines God's ability to do everything. He said he can save to the uttermost. Nothing is impossible with God. So you may think you sound holy when you do that, but it's really self-serving. So you just get out of that pit, and you're the only one who can get you out of that pit. But what you do is you hang on to the strength of God who gets you out of that pit. But you have to do it. When Jesus healed the man with the withered hand, mm-hmm. He said, stretch out your hand. The man could have said, listen, I'm paralyzed. I've never been able to stretch out my hand. I can't do it. But he immediately did it. And with that act, he was healed because he believed. He believed, and therefore it happened. Yeah. And that's why I have a DVD called Believing is Seeing. Most people say, well, I prayed to God, and if he does this, then I'll do this. I will dedicate my life to him if he saves my mother. That's not the way it works. You have to believe first, and then you see. And you don't bargain with God. You don't bargain with God. He's the one that has all the chips. He made you. You can't even speak. When people are so hateful to God, I think, the only way you could be that hateful is he has given you the life and the ability to speak so you can blaspheme him. Mm. That's what a good God he is, because without him giving you life and breath, you couldn't even talk and you couldn't even live. Mm. But eventually they will find that out. But people don't realize that a lot of their enjoyment or desire to stay in this state of guilt is actually self-centeredness. The other thing it is sometimes they get pity from other people. They get attention from other people. I'm an orthopedic surgeon, but we knew, in fact, I discovered this, I called it the day sign. When I was a resident and I was rotating through a hospital that took care of a lot of people with back problems, there were many patients with multiply operated backs. They'd had 5, 6, 7, 8 back surgeries. Mm-hmm. And the day sign I recognized was if I would see a patient and they would have an operation And within about 6 months, they had back pain again. Their back pain, there are failed back surgeries. I'm not saying that there are plenty of failed back surgeries, but
And when you have surgery and there's a fusion or something like that, it changes the movement of the spine and it could cause problem for the spine above and the below it, right?
well, when you fuse it,
Mm-hmm.
then that part doesn't move. And what it can do over time, it doesn't do it immediately, but over time, then you have what's called stress risers at the top and bottom of
Yeah.
the area that's fused, because usually your whole spine can bend.
Mm-hmm.
But so I rarely suggest fusion. Sometimes in massive injuries and car accidents and things like that, you have
Yeah.
to do fusion. But again, those people can have what we call stress riser. If you have a broken bone and you have a metal plate put on the bone with screws, you always have a stress riser at the end of the plate. Oh, there we go with the phone again. They always know.
They always know when to call you, right?
So the stress riser, let me just get water.
You okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
The stress riser.
Oh, you turned that off. You turned it off. Okay. Well,
I turned off.
when Dr. Day says she's busy, she's really busy. So, when she talks about how the reason why God created sin or allowed sin in the world is so that we can know God and turn away from evil and know what good is, right?
That's right.
This is true with Dr. Day. When she comes here, we get to see how busy she is. She gets calls all the time. I mean, we spent Saturday together and virtually, and I mean, her phone would stop ringing. She is so busy. So I am grateful because every time I hear her phone ring, I know I got her attention. Go ahead, Dr. Day. You're talking about the day factor.
Day sign, right. So a person who's had multiple operations on their back they'll be, see, when they're going to have an operation, the family all comes around, they're all very attentive to them. And then they have their operation and everybody comes to see them in the hospital. And when they're recuperating, people come by, they bring by food and they take care of them and all that. But after about 3 months, family gets tired of it. So they stop. And that's when they start developing symptoms again. Mm-hmm. Oh, I guess this surgery didn't work. I guess I have back pain again and all that. So this is an attention getting mechanism. People do it when they don't want to work. There's just an enormous number of people who fake or actually believe that they have pain because they don't want to work. And so it's all about them. And it should be all about others and God. That doesn't mean that you can't have legitimate pain. That doesn't mean that you can't have legitimate back pain. I'm not trying to say that. But when a pattern develops, you can start seeing that. And when a person continues to roll around in their guilt for a long period of time, talk about it with somebody. You don't even have to go to a therapist. Talk about it with somebody else or a friend or something like that.
A life coach.
Talk about it and let it go. And then say, I cannot change the past. And a lot of psychiatrists and psychologists are always trying to, where's the blame, and go through it over and over again. That is not helpful. Getting rid of it and letting it go, I mean, talking to somebody about it and letting it go is helpful. You don't necessarily want to keep it all clogged up. And you certainly, I know a lot of psychiatrists and psychologists are telling people, when you get that way, then scream and pound on things. No, that is not the way to handle it. That teaches you to be enabled to be aggressive and angry. What you do is you learn self-control. The fruits of the Spirit of God are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faith, humility, and self-control. Those are the characteristics of a life lived in Christ. So you need self-control, and not just to let your aggressive behavior out and exhibit it. That is not the good, and that harms you, because it triggers your fight or flight reaction and you hold on to anger. I'm not suggesting you just bottle it all up. I'm suggesting you give it to the Lord.
Mhm.
That's what you do with it, because he's the one who can handle it without getting sick. If you want to destroy your life, then you hang on to your anger, you hang on to your self-pity, you hang on to your selfishness and your self-righteousness, and you'll destroy yourself.
Yes.
So you have to let it go.
Okay, those are great words. And now I want to go back, because you said so much, Dr. Day, as always. You said so many things that I want to go back and kind of like hone in, take that one look at it. Now, you talked about the Dr. Day, you said that sign, the Dr. Day sign.
Dr. Day sign, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so the Dr. Day sign. So what I'm hearing you say is that just like a pity party, people get attention, get acknowledgement. They don't feel good enough about themselves
Right.
to say, I am worthy for your attention. Like a 2-year-old child that only gets attention from their parents when they're sick or when they're behaving poorly.
Right.
If they're behaving good, life is good, nobody makes a big deal about it. But when they're not behaving, then that's when they get the attention. That's learned behavior, Dr. Day. And not only that, I learned just recently, and it was life-changing, that I learn it, and that I can share it to people that I coach, and I bring it up as often as I can. But endorphins are released when somebody is a victim, because the characteristics that you're talking about is victim mentality.
Right.
And so yesterday in our classroom guilt has that same kind of association with the release of endorphins. So there is a biological thing happening within us, that not only psychological, but a biological thing happening. And so that's why I wanted to take a snapshot of this. So if people are finding themselves blaming everybody for their situation, or not getting enough attention, or feeling alone, or feeling not heard, or whatever, those are things that we've created within our own behaviors, because it supports us from childhood. I will tell you this, and I'm going to be perfectly honest. I was one of 5 kids, but I got the most attention when I was sick. And growing up chronic asthmatic, I had a lot of attention. And it wasn't until I didn't want that kind of attention that I started changing some things around. I don't take medication for asthma. I take vitamin C. That helps my lungs. That helps my immune system. It helps me.
Water.
I drink lots of water, of course. But I'm just saying some of the things I changed from medications. And I do herbs, lobelia. Those are things that God created on earth so that we can help ourselves. It's just like you said, that person, that the paralytic man with the arm had to stretch their arm out in order to get that new truth be delivered to them. And just like we just talked about in the New Truth series, Book of Revelation, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, I told you that I had been listening to John and studying John again, because I've researched John before. But the story of the paralytic man in Bethsaida waiting to be carried into the pool, but somebody else, the first one that jumps in, gets the spirit, gets to be saved. And he had been sitting there, 38 years, 34 years. I can't remember how long, but I know it was a long time. But Jesus didn't save him. Jesus didn't heal him. Jesus asked the question, why he was there. And he had to acknowledge why he was there. And once he said he wanted to be saved, Jesus didn't levitate him and throw him in the pool. Jesus said, pick up your mat and walk. That story to me is such a powerful story, just like the man that had to stretch out the hand.
That's right.
And that's what we've got to do too.
What Jesus said to him before he was healed, though, is very telling. And something I say to many cancer patients who talk to me about getting well. He said to him, do you want to be well?
Yes.
Do you want
He
to
asked
be
the question.
well?
Mhm.
That's a very important thing, because people lose a lot of perks when they get well.
That's right. There are prices and payoffs to illness.
That's right. And so they no longer get the same attention. They know they then have to go back to work. They have to do a whole lot of things when they get well. So Jesus asked him, he'd been laying there for like 30 years or something. And Jesus said, do you want to be well?
Mhm.
And there are many people, again, as an orthopedic surgeon, I have taken care of a whole lot of people who want to be on disability.
Yeah. I
They
know
were-
a few of
I
those.
I was the wrong one for them to come to.
Yeah.
You know what? In fact, to give you the disability
I
office.
can't even imagine the talk you gave them. Boo, boo, boo.
But I'm talking about the disability office is crazy, because they would give people disability for almost nothing. And then I had one man who had, one of those big cars that go on a freight train that, weigh probably, 500 tons, that have things in them. One of those fell on a man, fell on him. And one leg was crushed beyond saving all the way to the hip, and the other one was severely damaged. I was able to save one leg, but I had to cut the other one off at the hip. And I kept getting letters from the unemployment office saying, when will he be able to go back to work? He was a longshoreman. And so I kept telling him, I cut off one leg at the hip, and I had to I saved the other leg, but he couldn't walk without crutches. And so they kept saying this to me over and over and over again. When's he going to be able to go back to work? Finally, I wrote back and I said, as soon as he grows a new leg. And then they accepted that. I mean, this is the crazy thing, but again, now this man was extremely motivated. He actually got another job. He had to be in a wheelchair. He got another job. I had a number of patients who actually went to work. They were in wheelchairs. So I never had a whole lot of sympathy for people sitting in a wheelchair and with their hands out, because I know people can still work. Yeah. And so again, people give up way too easily. As I told you, I'm writing a chapter for one of my future books. It's called, Are You Too Lazy to Live?
Yeah.
Because don't want to do what it takes.
Yeah. And not only that, too lazy to live. Some people, and there's a philosophy that when people die of a certain illness, they have really certainly kind of given up to that illness. I'm not saying that everybody who dies is giving up, but there are some people where death is their out. They've been committing slow suicide their entire life, and death is their way out. Right. Would you like to elaborate on that, Dr. Day?
Well, I have seen that, because they don't want to work hard enough to get well. The other thing is, you see, when Jesus, in the Bible, it says, God says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. Everybody in America has the ability to have a Bible. Everybody. And in the Bible is the 100% guarantee that if you do it God's way, you'll be well, both physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, every way, if you follow his laws, commandments, and decrees. And look at everybody who is sick. They're sick physically, they're sick emotionally, and yet the promise of absolute perfect health in every way is given to us in the Bible, but nobody reads the Bible. And then if they do, they don't recognize it, because all of these churches are full of people who are sick and dying. So where are the pastors? Are they not reading the Bible? But you see, there's sense knowledge and there's revelation knowledge. Sense knowledge is when you don't really understand anything in the Bible except through your five senses. Revelation knowledge is when you are really searching for the Lord with all your heart, and God opens up your mind to understand truth. You see, but these pastors don't know how to get their people. They don't know how to get themselves well.
Yeah.
Many of them are on drugs. They've got all sorts of diseases. And so here is the answer. It is there for everyone, and nobody even knows it's there.
Yeah, and you do a really good job, and I want to shift here for a second because and I want to thank all of you for tuning in today. And if you have any questions, please type in a Q and write your question. If you want to text your question, you can do that at 407-373-5959. There it is, right there, so that everybody text me, like, or they say, "What's the number again?" So there it is. Okay, so I want you to know that I did get this book, My Utmost for His Highest. And, every day I read a chapter. Every day I read a day. Yeah, I read a page. And this morning, the lesson was the nature of reconciliation. And I thought, it is so important because we started this conversation with that disease begins in the heart. And reconciliation, yeah, you can understand, and there's that awareness. And Dr. Day, I've heard you say that anger, lust, wanting more, stress, not drinking enough water, which I do, and getting enough sunlight, and all those magical. And for those of you who have just, if this is the first time seeing Dr. Day, if you go to my YouTube channel or my Facebook page, heck, go to whenyouneedafriend.com. I think we're going to have a Dr. Day section because she has been in the classroom so many times, because we need that in our life, because sometimes we grow up, and when you're a child and you're being taken care of, or maybe not taken care of, we make up stuff about things. Mm-hmm. And when we were children, it supported us. It helped us grow. But now that we're adults, that childhood ways they just do not support us anymore. So I want to encourage you to go back and check out, go to whenyouneedafriend.com. First of all, go to whenyouneedafriend.com, subscribe and like and follow and do all that stuff. And as you know, because we don't know how long. And I am very grateful to YouTube, and I'm very grateful to Facebook for allowing us to be live, but we don't know how long we will have this platform, being that we're being censored quite a bit. So I am encouraging you also to go to BitChute and like me there, so that whenever there's a new video, you'll get to, and by the way, Dr. Day's video, when I first started BitChute, that was one of the things I did. I wanted to put Dr. Day and BitChute, and it's my #1 video that people are watching. People want to know these new truths. Right. And I'm so grateful to Dr. Day for being a part of my New Truth series. And so I want to encourage you guys to be a part of that so that we can learn and grow together. I also want to make sure that you go, while you're in whenyouneedafriend.com, check out my sponsors page. I'm not going to go through all of them right now. I just want you to go there, check them out, and figure out the way that you can support my sponsors, the way that they're supporting us. But we're changing things around. As you can tell, my sponsors are no longer here. My affiliate sponsors are no longer here, because if they stop being my sponsors and I want to air this again, then they're there. So we need to change some things around and rely on the generosity of the people. This is your classroom. So if you're learning anything from this classroom, I ask you to become an enrolled student and donate, whether it's $1 or $1,000 a month, whatever it is, whatever you can give, because if we get eliminated, if this platform ends right now, it's going to take a lot more to grow the classroom because of the finances. It costs money. So let's all share in it, like it used to be in the old days, right, Dr. Day? Everybody took care of each other, and so that's how we allow good things to happen. So I want to encourage you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com and be a part of the enrolled students. You can become an honor student. We're updating some names because we've got some people that have taken a stand with the classroom, and I want to thank you all. And for those of you who are joining us today as well. Dr. Day, I want to point all of you to Dr. Day's website. She has Good News About God, and she also has drday.com. That's how long she's had this website. And let me tell you, it's still going strong. It's time for us to stop this childhood ways that don't support us anymore, that's creating illness, disease, depression, anxiety. And so learn these new truths so they will set you free. And it starts with that heart of ours. Dr. Day, a lot of us are thinkers. I can be a thinker sometime, but I am a most biggest feeler that you can imagine. But I rely on my intuition and the gifts from God to speak to me. And I rely that completely. But what's happening, Dr. Day, is that people are self-absorbed. They haven't been taught what you're speaking about, what I'm speaking about, what I've learned more so as an adult as I am as when I was a child. And when I was a child, I acted like a child, but now I'm an adult. And now we can't blame our parents and we can't blame anybody. And we have, and I want to encourage you to go to my responsibility page that you answer 4 questions. And we're going to be doing a seminar on this pretty soon. After we're done with the New Truth series, I'm doing a workshop about me calling it's going to be called I Am the Solution. But really, I with God am the solution. So I am incorporating God. I have changed so much because of Dr. Day. So I want us to, if you want to be a part of that workshop, please let me know. It's going to be November 13th, 14th, and 15th. But the 14th, which is a Saturday, is going to be a day of reflection because it's our Sabbath day. Even that, Dr. Day, has changed within me. So Dr. Day, I want to tell you, I absolutely adore you. I can't tell you enough how much I love you and how grateful I am to you. And so with gratitude is like, I call it the kryptonite of this self-absorption. So let's talk about the importance of gratitude when it comes to that reconciliation.
Well, first of all, the reconciliation that God talks about, it says in Colossians, I think it's 1:20, that he's going to reconcile all to himself. Now, the translators always put in the word things, reconcile all things to himself, like it's trees and flowers and I guess dirt. No, it's I reconcile all to himself. God is going to put everybody back in the position where he wanted them in the first place, and that is perfection. And he can do that. None of us can do it on our own. God is the only one who can change our heart. But what he does is he says, work out your own salvation. I give you all the tools to do it. But you can't just sit there and say, oh, well, God, keep me from sinning. No, you have to make the effort. In other words, if you're going to quit smoking, you've got to get all the cigarettes out of your house. You've got to prepare what you're going to do when you're tempted to smoke, whether you're going to chew gum or whether you're going to eat an apple or whatever you're going to do.
Exercise. Do not turn to sugar or sweets or lollipop.
Well, exercise is hard to do when you're driving your car, and a lot of people want that. So you have to plan ahead. Just like when you are angry with somebody. When you are angry with somebody, and in human terms, you have a right to be angry with them. I've been in that place in my life several times. I had a right to be angry because I was done so wrong. But what you have to do, God says, are you perfect? Are you perfect? Have you never done anything wrong? Then you have to forgive 70 times 7. Peter came to Jesus and said, how often should we forgive? 7 times? Jesus said 70 times 7. So we have to forgive, not that we endorse what the person did. What they did could be very wrong, but you have to learn how to forgive them. Otherwise, it eats you alive. And the way you do that is when these thoughts would come into my mind about, and I hated this man. I hated him. He was my husband. I hated him for the way he had treated me, but I knew it was wrong. And I would pray to the Lord, I hate this man. I would admit it, but I say, I know it's wrong to do it, and help me not do it. And then I would plan what I would do. When that thought came into my mind, I would be prepared as to what I was going to think about.
Love it.
And it was a wonderful thing that when we had a wonderful vacation in a certain place, and when that thought came in, I would push it out and I would think about this other thing immediately. I can tell you that other thought kept coming back and I had to keep pushing it out. But as I kept doing that, it got a little bit easier and a little bit easier, and then I could get rid of it. But you have to plan. You have to make all the arrangements ahead of time for how you're going to do this. Otherwise, you're never going to do it. It's always going to be there. It will have a grip on you and it will destroy your health. There was one woman I met many years ago who had breast cancer. This was after I had gotten well. And she was having chemo and all that. And she was telling me about, she had been married and how her husband had done her so wrong. And so I told her, you're gonna have to let that go and all that. So about 5 years later, she was even worse because she'd had a whole bunch of chemo. She never really changed her life. And so I ran into her again, and she said, I just learned that even up to the end, when my husband and I were married, that he had been having adulterous affairs even 15 years before. I didn't even know about that. She said, it makes me so angry. And I said, first of all, you're not doing yourself any good to be angry. And secondly, the next time you see him, you need to tell him you forgive him. Not that you agree that what he did was right. You don't endorse it, but you forgive him or write him a letter. And she said, oh, I can't do that. He's been dead for 25 years. I said, you're letting him kill you from the grave. He's been dead for 25 years and she's still hanging on to this. And she eventually died. She killed herself with her anger. For a man who was already dead, he was controlling her from the grave. I had to learn to forgive my ex-husband because otherwise it would kill me. I was not going to let him, he was gone, but I wasn't going to let him control me after he was already gone. Mm-hmm. When you hold on to that anger, when you hold on to that pity, okay, maybe your parents didn't treat you right. Okay, again, you can get rid of it. You can talk to somebody about it. You can admit that it happened. But then when you get through that, you see, God never made any perfect parents. And so everybody grows up with baggage.
Well, the only perfect parent is the one that hasn't given birth to anyone. They think when I give birth to my kid, I'm going to do things different, until one day you say something and you go, where's my parent? So you become that, or you can learn how not to do it. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
God never made any perfect parents. When you become a parent, you're going to make different mistakes from your parents, but you're going to make some mistakes.
Sure.
And so God makes sure that everybody grows up with some baggage. So when they become an adult, they have to get rid of it. You see, what happens when people grow is they grow into bigger bodies, but they don't grow up. Their body gets taller, but they don't grow up. And so they're children raising children many times. We have to grow up. And the best way to grow up is to grow up in Jesus Christ, because then we become a truly mature adult. We learn how to let go of the anger. We learn how to love our enemies. That doesn't mean you have to hang out with these people. Correct. You don't have to do that. You don't have to have them over to your house all the time if someone has done you wrong. But you do have to treat them as a human being, and you have to forgive them. Mm-hmm. Again, God will take care of the reaping what they've sown. God will take care of that. They will reap what they've sown. But what happens to us so many times is we want to be around to see it. Mm-hmm. We want to be around to see it. Maybe we will, or maybe we won't. It doesn't make any difference. God will take care of it. But there was some philosopher who said, and I mentioned this on one of my DVDs, that we roll this anger around on our tongue and we love it. And you see, it's sort of like a feast for us. Mm-hmm. And yet the skeleton at the feast is you. Mm-hmm. You're the one who destroys yourself by wanting that revenge, by holding on to that anger. People don't understand that when they're angry, they trigger their fight or flight reaction. They pour cortisone into their body, which suppresses their immune system. So they are more subject to all diseases. And the adrenaline, you see, when you get adrenaline, it's like you have had like 6 or 8 cups of coffee. So you're higher than a kite, but then you're fatigued, and then you're depressed and you're tired, and then you get angry again, and then you're higher than a kite, and then you go back. Guess what?
What a vicious circle, isn't it?
Bipolar disorder.
Oh,
that's what it is. That's what causes it. All of this anger or stress, you get high, and then your body has to recover. So then you're low and depressed, and you're anxious and all. And so it's up and down and up and down. And seems like psychologists and psychiatrists haven't figured this out. it is triggering the fight or flight reaction that causes bipolar disorder.
Yeah. And, and many people that practice medicine, if they get you better, then they lose their client. And I bring ancillary products to doctors. These are products that are, people can use to work with their body. But some people go, well, if they get better, then I lose my client.
Yeah.
You got to understand that we're trusting humans for our health. And I love the change of perspective. And I know you have a lot of fans from the classroom here. And, I'm sure that all of us are changing our mentality and the way we look at things. I remember, Dr. Day, and I think that forgiveness is so important. It's such an important tool. Many people come to me because they want to, get a better job or find a man or, or find a mate or whatever it is. But it always comes back to past childhood traumas. I always go in there and start trying to unravel, because the anger is really, truly sadness. But we just don't know how to express our sadness. And the best way that people will pay attention is because we're angry. And now there's that high again. And then, the pity party or the story in our head that keeps feeding that corpse that you're talking about, that right there, when we do that, what you're talking about is setting yourself up for success. When you're setting yourself up for success, for example, making a plan. So if those thoughts come in, not suppress them, acknowledge the thought, let them go through you, because we have a plan now. People who are trying to give up smoking, if they're in the car and they can't go for a jog or do something healthy, all they need is to breathe. Because that is the action of smoking, is taking a breath, but they don't know how to take a breath without a cigarette. So that taking that air is a great way. So if they're driving in the car and they want to give up smoking, basically the body's saying, I need air. But we interpret it as, oh, I need a smoke. And those are things that people just need to become aware. So Dr. Day, the first time I ever hated anybody, that I actually thought I hated him, was my ex-husband. And I knew it was consuming me, but it wasn't until, and I also had other incidences where I was sucker punched and betrayed by other people in my life. And I learned that the best way to combat those behaviors is not only to be grateful. I fell in love with my ex-husband again when I became grateful for the children I ended up having in that relationship. And I no longer looked at him as the man who hurt me. I looked at him as the man who gave me these beautiful kids that I couldn't have with Robert. And Robert and I had been together for 27 years. So I was young enough to have children back then with him, but I wouldn't have been able to have children. And God knew that I wanted children. So God used my stupidity to pick the wrong mate to create the most beautiful kids. And understanding that God's purpose can be a beautiful opportunity to grow, or it can be the poison that ruins me for the rest of my life. I choose gratitude. And the second time around that I felt that I could never, I was so upset, I started sending them love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. So every time I thought of that person, that thought came in, I would like, okay, I can become bitter, or I can send them love, because what I send to them will come back to me. So if I curse them, curses will come to me. But if I love them, so, and that is when I say goodbye, that's my sign. That's how I say goodbye to everybody. I wish you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance.
Right.
So those are things that, this is how what you're talking about, Dr. Day, is preparing ourselves so that we don't sabotage ourselves, that we become successful at reconciliation. In your letter that you wrote, was there a plan. Did you write that letter out of anger, or did you write that letter in gratitude for the experience?
When I wrote to my ex-husband,
Ex-husband, yeah.
I went over the whole first part of the letter was how many wonderful things we had done together and the
Good.
kinds of things we had enjoyed and our wonderful children.
Mhm.
And so the first part, we had some wonderful times, and I went over all of those. And then I said, I asked forgiveness from him for my part in our breakup, and then I told him that I forgave him for his part in the breakup. I never heard from him. I had to send another letter to his girlfriend, the one that he had, staying in our summer home. Uh, but now he never responded. She never responded, but it doesn't matter.
Doesn't
I
matter.
had to do it.
That's right.
I had to do it. And so with doing that, but it was, if I had just been angry and spiteful, I might as well not have written the letter, because it
Correct.
wouldn't have done anything for my heart, and it wouldn't have been acceptable in the sight of God. So I had to do it, and I couldn't do it until I really meant it, and I had to mean it. That's why it is so empowering when you do it, because then they
Yes.
no longer have control over you. And again, the other thing that I have come to believe, because I've had, as I've told you, I've had a lot of enemies when I tell the truth about what's going
I
on in the world.
understand.
I've had my
I
life threatened
understand.
many times. And I actually feel sorry for these people. And it's not, I'm not, oh, you're so pitiful. No, it's not that. It's, they're going to reap what they've sown.
You
And
know
they
what's
have
coming
no
to them.
idea what's
Yeah.
coming. They have
Yeah.
no idea what's coming. And the reaping that they're going to do is going to be so horrific. So I actually feel sorry for them. And I don't harbor the anger, because I know what it does to you, because I did it for a long enough time with all the other things in my life, not getting enough sleep and drinking huge amounts of coffee and eating sugar and all that. I know what that does to you. So I don't do any of that anymore. But the forgiveness is much harder. It's much harder to forgive than it is to stop drinking coffee. I can tell you that. Even though it was hard for me to stop drinking coffee, because I probably got an average of 5 hours sleep a night for 25 years. And that, of course, destroys your health. But when I first stopped drinking coffee, I decided to do it in one day. And I thought, okay, I'm going to stop. Well, by 11 o'clock, I was drinking 6, 7, 8 cups of coffee a day, because I was operating
Oof.
night and day.
Oof.
And so with the first day I quit, by 11 o'clock, I was vomiting. So I had to start again, and then I had to do it very slowly and get off of it slowly, but I was able to do it. But you see, when you unburden yourself with the forgiveness that you need to give to someone others, it's very empowering.
Mhm.
And I may have said this on your program before, but Abraham Lincoln one time was walking along with a friend, and he stopped to buy a paper from a man on the corner who was selling it in Washington, D.C. And the man was not a fan of Abraham Lincoln's, and I guess really gave him the riot act there. But Abraham Lincoln was very kind to him. And as they walked on, his friend said, "Why are you so nice to your enemies?" He said, "Well, when I'm nice to my enemies, they are no longer my enemies, and they become my friends." And so that is I'm not saying that your ex-husband will be your friend, but I can tell you that once I changed my view, it was much easier for us to negotiate what was going on with our children and things like that. Otherwise, you're just carrying all this baggage, like the woman who I suggested she apologized to her husband. He'd been dead for 25 years. I mean, and she destroyed herself.
Yeah.
I had a very close friend who died of Parkinson's because she hated her husband.
Mm.
She did everything else right. She was a vegan vegetarian. She exercised all the time. She drank her water. She did everything right. She kept the Sabbath. She did all that. She hated her husband. And in human terms, she had a proper reason to do so,
Sure.
but it killed her.
Mm.
It killed her. So the thing is, you kill yourself with these things. Just let go. Don't let somebody else control the way you feel. Don't let that person. Because when you hate them, when you hold anger, when you refuse to forgive them, they are controlling the way you feel. But again, we don't live by our feelings anyway.
No.
We live by truth. We don't live by our feelings because, someday we might get up and we didn't have a good night's sleep and we don't feel very good. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how we feel. It only matters what we do about it. So we have to do something about it. And of course, the better sleep you get and the better you eat and live, the healthier you will be. But don't live by your feelings. You can always feel good if you decide to feel good.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And that when I was going through personal growth classes before I decided to become a life coach, I felt like we need to be self-cleaning ovens. We need to figure out what's going on within ourselves. That's that plank in our eye before we can solve everybody else's speck.
Right.
And so I remember going through that process and understanding that we can tell ourselves the story in our head of victimization, or we can tell the story how we were part of the creation of that moment. It is so empowering. And people need to get, if they get anything today with Dr. Lorraine and our conversation today, it's that holding on to anger, being prideful, and saying, that I'm not gonna forgive them. They don't deserve forgiveness. Basically, what you're saying is, I don't deserve to be set free.
Right.
I don't deserve to be set free. And if somebody doesn't want to talk to you, and this is something, Dr. Day, that I am doing more now. And I understood it logically, but when you have to do it, it's a totally different thing. But there are people, and I've spoken to you about this in my life right now, that I know that if I were to go to them and say, I'm sorry for my behavior, even though I know that their behavior was evil towards me, and I'm taking 100% responsibility for that. If I were to go to them, they would say, you are awful. And they would never say, I'm sorry for what they've done. And what they've done has been really, really rotten.
Right.
I can walk away from that going, she did it to me again, or they did it to me again, or he did it to me again.
Let it go.
But I have learned that sometimes you can reconcile without having to go to that person, because I owe it to myself to set me free. And that's what God is for. When you said just now, God created our baggage, I'm like, whoa, I need to process this. I need to process this. But God created our baggage so we can give it to him.
Right.
But we can give the baggage to God, because it doesn't make sense for us to carry it around like a 5 pound, 50 pound, 100 pound sack of potato. I'm not going to forgive. I'm not going to forgive. And next thing you know, we got back problems. We've got cancer. We got all these, because that's where disease begins.
Yes.
In
Disease
the heart.
begins in the heart. And as I've said, and I say on one of the CDs in my CD set, I say with cancer, which is what I had, surgery is always necessary, but not with a surgeon's knife. We need a new heart, but not a heart from a cadaver on life support. We need the heart of Jesus Christ. And that's what God gives us. He gives us a new heart. He gives us the right spirit, the right attitude towards other people. And he changes us completely. So we don't even want to hate anybody anymore. And when we realize God's plan that he's going to have everybody reap what they sow, just leave it to him. He's the one that can handle that. We are made in such a way we can't handle it. Give it to the Lord.
I love it. I love it. And for those of you who have asked questions, as you know, we have our Teacher's Pet Corner after the classroom, after the podcast. And I want to thank all my podcast people as well, and let them know that you guys can come live and listen to the podcast as well. The Teacher's Pet Corner afterwards. We've got lots of questions. And Dr. Day, you do have, I didn't ask you, do you have extra time afterwards? Do you?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because Dr. Day knows the drill. We always have extra time afterwards. But, I want to ask all of you that if there's something that you're harboring right now, this is something that I want to do after the New Truth series. with Dr. Day, the book of Revelation, because we need to get our heart ready. And Dr. Day and I just announced that our next series starts January 18th, and that's going to be the lessons from Exodus. 50 lessons from
50
Exodus.
lessons from Exodus.
50 lessons from Exodus. But between those two dates, in November 13th, 14th, and 15th, and again, the Sabbath is going to be reflection. We're going to come together to reflect on some of these pains, these traumas that we need to release, because we don't want to release it for whatever reason it is, but we're going to work together. We're going to get ready to be prepared for this, if this is the end of time, to prepare our heart. We're going to do heart surgery. Maybe that's what we should call it, instead of I am the solution, I and God are the solution, but we could call it a heart surgery session. Right. And so I want to invite all of you to be aware that this is something that we're going to be doing pretty soon. We're going to be announcing it in the New Truth series. I'm excited about this. And I am grateful to Dr. Day to let us see that there is a solution, and it's God. We can give always. And I love it, Dr. Day, when you say, no one is out of the reach of God.
That's correct.
God's hands. And thank you, Dr. Day, for everything you do. And we're going to continue our conversation. Make sure you like and follow and do all those things. Send it to people. Maybe you could send it to someone that you're hurting, that someone who's hurt you, and start the conversation today. Please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Dr. Lorraine Day wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Good job, Dr. Day. That was the best ever. Here we go.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.
Okay, so we have lots of questions, Dr. Day. This is probably one of my favorite conversations to have in the classroom. It's about forgiveness. It's about awareness. It's about making a choice to end and release whatever it is, whether you have been molested as a child or wronged as an adult. It doesn't matter what it is. There is a way to go from that someone did me wrong to I choose this for me because the lessons that came from it are invaluable.
Right.
I mean, Dr. Day, can you think about the time in your life that everything was perfect, finances were great, nothing was wrong? I mean, how much growth did you do during that time?
Oh, no, you don't change it all. If everything's going well, you don't change it all. Why should you? Everything's going well. The only way you change is when things go upside down. And then you have to do something. You either go down with the ship or else you grow. And it's far better to grow. And so I know all of these things that happened in my life. I understand now why they happened to get me to the place where I am. I was an agnostic for 35 years of my adult life. I had no interest in religion at all. I didn't read the Bible. I was raised a Christian. I read the Bible a lot growing up because I went to Christian schools. So I was reading for my lessons. I was a good student. I wanted to do well. I didn't know the Lord, but I did know that my father knew the Lord. I knew that my father knew the Lord. My mother, not as much as my father, although she was a wonderful woman. She was a wonderful woman and kind and all that. And I actually, when I told her about universal restoration, which she had never heard of, when I told her about that and showed her all the texts, I spent one whole afternoon showing her that when I understood about it, that God's going to save everybody. And I thought I was going to have a big fight on my hands. But she immediately said, "That's God. I know that's God." And then she said, and she was perfectly well at that time. She said, "Now I can die in peace because I know that God's going to save everybody I love." So she understood that immediately. And I realized that she was closer to God than I recognized because she understood it immediately. By the time I understood about universal restoration, my father had already passed away, so I couldn't talk to him about it. But I can tell you that this is the greatest joy ever. And this is who God is. And this is how he's going to restore us to being. So if you're going to hang on to that lack of forgiveness, you're going to hang on to anger, grudge holding, go ahead, go down with the ship. He's going to get you later, but why not just get on board now and avoid the rush of all the people who are doing it later?
Yeah. Avoid the rush. I love that. Okay, so I'm going to read some of your questions. We got lots of questions, Dr. Day. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is from Great Kumbini. Okay, it says, how do you handle someone who has chronic severe throat pain from nerve damage from stage 4 cancer, chemo radiation treatments, many days, the pain is overwhelming? I'm so sorry to hear that.
Well, I would suggest get well.
Yeah, but how from the chemo?
You can still, if people who've had chemo can still get well.
Okay, so she's asking for suggestion how to do it.
Yeah, well, the thing is, go to my website, all the information. This is not, people write sometimes, they say, just give me the one book I need to get well. And I say, well, what if I said to a law school professor, I just want one book or one DVD to tell me how to pass the bar and get through law school? I mean, you need more information. This person has gotten themselves into this situation. He or she did it to themselves, just like I did it to myself.
And that, I want to say that whenever people hear that, they get angry.
Oh, sure.
But I want to make sure that you understand this is displaced anger, because why would I go through this when I was told that this was the way to go? Chemotherapy, radiation. I was going through fear and I was told this is the only way. And this chemotherapy and radiation causes cancer as well. It causes lots of pain. And now you're saying this, and the anger is not towards Dr. Day. The anger is towards the people who actually did this too.
Well, the anger should be against yourself because you're not reading your Bible.
Well,
God gives you the way to get well. Mm-hmm. You have that available to you right at your fingertips. It's because you don't want to follow God's way. Nobody has tied your hands to keep you from opening a Bible, and they're available every place. You can get one for a couple of bucks, a whole lot less than it costs you for the chemo and all the radiation. We do this to ourselves. The reason that I can say this, you can get mad at me as much as you want. It doesn't bother me. I gave myself cancer, and everybody who has a disease gave it to themselves.
But you didn't do genetic. You didn't do radiation. So radiation, there are side effects to radiation.
But the thing is, I didn't do radiation, and that makes you worse, but you can still get well. You can still get well. Even if you've had radiation or chemotherapy, even if you've had a whole bunch of body parts removed, you can still get well. So you just have to decide, I'm going to do it God's way. You've got to dig yourself out of a slightly deeper hole, but you can still get well. So
and
that's
wellness. What I'm hearing you say is wellness is also in the mind.
Oh, of course, you have to decide. The reason that I got well is I said, I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get well, and I'm not going to complain. As I've told you before, and numerous times when I've been on, talk to people. And again, the plan is not a food plan. The plan is not a juicing plan. Those things are part of it, but there are 10 steps in the plan. But, when people say, oh, I have to be a vegan vegetarian, and they screw up their nose like that. And I say, but I don't like vegetables. And my answer is, what does that have to do with it? It doesn't matter what you like. Grow up. We're grown-ups now. Grow up. It doesn't matter what you like. It only matters how you handle the issue and what you do. How many mothers love changing dirty diapers on their baby? Oh, I love change. No, they don't, but they do it because it's the right thing to do, and because they're grown up enough to do it. Who likes to clean up the vomit of their sick child? Nobody loves to do that. You just do it because it's the right thing to do. If you're sick, the good news, you should embrace the good news, because if you did it to yourself, which you did, then you can fix it.
That's right.
That's the good news. And until you recognize and admit you did it to yourself, you can't get well.
Yes, absolutely. Amen.
So that's
Okay.
the best news in the world, that you did it to yourself.
That's right. That's right. And Sandra, thank you so much for your question, how to donate to the classroom. What you can do is you can go to whenyouneedafriend.com, and you can either become a reoccurring donor go to the enroll student button, go there. Right now, there's some modifications happening in the website because there was a problem with the theme on the website. So they're in the process of fixing that. But if those numbers, if it's different that you want to donate, or it's a one-time thing, you can go on PayPal, and the Lily at whenyouneedafriend.com is my PayPal, and you can do a donation there. Or people are sending checks, which I think is just, God is so good. And so you can send the checks to the PO Box 10. And I don't know if Robert, if you are listening still, if you can put the PO Box number, it's PO Box 1064. I hope I said it right. And that's Cape Canaveral, Florida, 32920. And if you want that, we can maybe put the address on there later on, or I can, but those are 3 different ways that you can donate. But thank you so much for your consideration. And if you want to be a part of the workshop, make sure that you are a subscriber at whenyouneedafriend.com. If you're not a member of the New Truth series, because all the announcements will be there on Facebook. But if you are also a member of a subscriber at whenyouneedafriend.com, I will be announcing the dates and the workshop. But the workshop that we're going to be doing, I'm not talking about the one with Dr. Day. That's going to be the 50 lessons from Exodus, and that's going to start January 18th. We'll make an announcement, and you guys can get the early bird special for those of you who want to get the early bird special. And the people that are the first ones to sign up, there's also going to be a discount for that too. So just stay tuned for it, because the workshop is going to be to help you get unstuck, to help you open your heart in ways that you never thought you could, so that you can prepare yourself for the lessons that we're going to learn from the book of not the book of Exodus, but from the Exodus.
Exodus
So
itself, right?
yeah, I keep saying the book of Exodus because there is a book of Exodus, but it's the actions, the journey of Exodus. Yes. Okay. So then Linda has apparently my hip is out of alignment. Does this sort of thing happen with anxiety or self-absorption? I want to walk and do my gardening without pain. Oh, but here we go, Dr. Day. Do you want to rewind? Okay. So thanks so much for this teaching.
Well, when you say your hip is out of alignment, hips don't dislocate or get out of alignment unless you get hit by a truck, or somebody throws you down the stairs, or you fall down the stairs. So I'm not sure what you're talking about, that your hip is out of alignment. If you're saying you have hip pain, then you have to decide what your hip pain is caused by, and I don't know how old you are. I don't know what your x-rays look like. If you want to stop your arthritis in its track, if that's what you have. Mm-hmm. Now, if you are too far gone, so you're 70 years old and you have severe arthritis, then you need a total hip replacement if you're not able to walk. And that's a good operation. It's a good operation. Doctors have done that for years, because you won't live long enough. You have to live to be about 250 to reverse that. So you won't be able to reverse that. But if you want to stop your arthritis, stop eating animal products and start drinking water and start exercising. Those are the ways you stop arthritis. I don't have any arthritis at all, and I'm 83. So you don't have to get arthritis. But if you're eating animal products, you're eating sugar. Sugar also causes.
I was gonna say inflammation.
Yeah, sugar, yeah. And so you don't want to do that, and you need to start getting some exercise. So, but when you say your hip is out of place, that takes an enormous amount of trauma to do that. And if you would know that if your hip was actually out of place, you wouldn't be able to walk.
Okay. And so good. I hope that's a start for you. You can go to drday.com,
Right.
or you can go to Good
I
News.
would suggest if you go to drday.com, the two things that you would want to start with are the DVD called Diseases Don't Just Happen. I talk about arthritis there. And then the book, I Will Give You Back Your Health Again. And that will help you get started on the plan.
Will that also help the lady or the person with the throat problems? I think it was the throat pains from
The cancer, the one that has cancer,
yeah.
they need the whole starter package. They can't get well
Okay.
without.
No, that I think this is after stage 4 cancer, chemotherapy and radiation
They
treatment.
still have cancer. They still have cancer.
Okay.
Chemo and radiation both cause cancer. How can you get well from cancer by having a treatment that causes cancer? The thing is, all that chemotherapy and radiation does is poison your body so much it's unable to make cancer cells for a while.
Yeah.
You're not well. You're not well. And if the treatment, whether the pain is caused by the treatment or caused by the cancer, it doesn't make any difference. You have to stop doing the things that have caused your problem.
Yeah.
And one is to stop the chemo, stop the radiation, and start changing your life, the way you're living, thinking, acting, eating, and handling stress. Even if people, the point is, again, if you take a hammer and hit your thumb every day, it's going to hurt. Yeah. So what do you do to stop? Stop hitting it with a hammer. Yeah. And that's what you've got to do. Change the things that caused your cancer in the first place and stop the chemo and radiation. It's only making you worse. It destroys your immune system, the one system God has given you to get you well.
Dr. Day, you said one time in the, and I don't know if you've said it more than one time, but at least I heard it again when we were going through the Bible study, the book of Revelation, New Truth series. You had said, the problem is that people are in love with Satan. Yeah. And now I had to sit with that one, Dr. Day. And I had to ask myself the question, how am I worshiping Satan? How am I doing this to me? Well, getting comfortable, being comfortable, not wanting to go outside and doing different things to make ourselves well, watching too much television and not wanting to eat well and giving into our temptations. And Satan takes on so many different views and looks, and Satan can be so seductive where some people turn to pornography or infidelity, and that's when I had to sit and say, how are the ways that and it's caused me not to even want to watch certain shows that I was watching. And I'm talking about they're not pornography. I don't do pornography or anything like that.
But they're not uplifting.
They're not uplifting. Yes. I said to Robert,
doesn't make you a better person.
Yeah.
And you see, when you understand, you don't have to be a bad person to be in love with Satan. You just have to be a selfish, I want what I want when I want it, and I have the right to make my own decisions. That is
right there. That's probably Satan's mantra. Yeah. If you think, and I had shared that, I think it was a week ago or so, that a friend of mine and she and I, when we were young moms, we'd get together and we'd go to a retreat center near us, and we would have lunch and we would pray. And in our prayers, basically, we would exchange gratitudes and catch each other up. But it became like, I want, amen. Right. That's what, and I shared that with her, that, that's what it seemed like we were doing. And we laughed. We thought it was funny, or she thought I was being funny, but I was being real. I was being like, and this is not what my prayer used to be. My prayer has been all along, God, if you want it for me, I want it. God, if you don't want it for me, please take it away. Please take it away. And then I become grateful that it's no longer there. And so that's and that mentality shift is that love for Satan. It's that love for, I want what I want when I want it. Right. And when you poke somebody in the eye with those words, you got to just take inventory. How is it that I do? And I want to challenge all of you today. You think about, how different ways that you're doing things that dishonor God and honor a creature that's evil. Yeah. And so, so this is interesting from Sandra. She said, isn't there something called righteous anger? And the way I know it, Dr. Day, the only one who had righteous anger was Jesus Christ.
Well, you can have righteous anger, such as when a child is being abused by somebody.
Sure.
It's righteous anger, but the Bible talks about righteous. You can be angry, but don't sin. It says you can be angry, but don't sin. In other words, you can see something is very wrong, and sometimes you can even have an ability to stop it or do something about it. Certainly not by killing the person who's
Mhm.
involved, but you can
Sure.
do something about it. You can have anger without sinning. You can have anger that Satan has deceived so many people, but you don't get angry. You don't get angry. You can recognize evil, but not to the point that you get angry about it and you destroy yourself. So
Correct.
you can have righteous anger, but make sure that it's righteous anger, and that you can forgive those who are doing it. But that doesn't mean that you continue to let a child be abused without either reporting it or doing something about it. Doesn't mean that. But it means that until we're perfect, we can't say, I'm not going to forgive them because they're not perfect,
Yeah.
because we're not perfect. Once we're perfect, eventually everybody will be perfect. And you won't have that problem.
Mhm. Yes, yes. Okay, so then Sandra wants to know what does the role of feelings play in our life? And I think you covered that pretty good if you wanted to add some, but it says God obviously gave them to us. Laughter, good, does good like medicine.
Well,
So
sure. I'm saying you don't live by your feelings. You get up in the morning, well, I don't feel like it. Well, I don't feel like going to work today. It doesn't matter whether you feel like it, you just do it. So I'm not saying that we should be emotionless. I mean, laughter is one of the greatest things. My family was very much into laughter. We all grew up laughing a
well, you
lot.
have a great sense of humor. We laugh a lot together. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So laughing is wonderful, and laughing is a good medicine. It produces endorphins. It decreases stress. It's a wonderful thing to do. And there's nothing wrong with being sad when some loved one passes away or something bad is happening. But you get a grip. You don't just wallow around in it forever. And so we can have feelings, but we don't live by our feelings.
Correct.
We
So you
live by doing what's right.
That's right. You're saying basically when you live a life based on feelings, let me give you an example, Sandra. And for those of you who are going, I want to learn more about that. I may not feel like doing the classroom today because my head hurts. So I'm just going to not show up.
Yeah, right.
Or I don't feel like going to a party that I RSVP'd for because I just want to watch that show. That's what Dr. Day is talking about. If you're guided by your feelings, or I want to marry this guy because I feel like, whatever. Whatever it is, it's not about feelings. It's about your commitments and honoring your commitments. So I may not feel well today, but I am here with you.
Right.
Like I shared with you last week, I was with my mom and I left my mother's side to be in the classroom with you.
Yeah.
And that was hard for me to do because I didn't feel like driving home because my commitment was torn. I was torn, but I knew that I had a commitment. And if I would have said, I don't feel like it because I want to be with my mom, I could have justified it. But my commitment to the commitment was more important than the feeling. And I knew that was important. Does that make sense, Dr. Day?
Oh, of course. And of course, all the time that I was doing surgery for 25 years in San Francisco during the wintertime, it's cold and it's rainy and the wind is blowing. And at that time, we lived in a very lovely home, but it did not have an attached garage. And I'd get a call at 2:00 in the morning, and I'd get out of my nice warm bed and I'd get my clothes on, and I'd go out in this freezing, driving rain that turned your umbrella inside out. You think I felt like doing that? No,
Right.
But I had to do it. It was part of my job. And so I did it. I never thought about it. I can tell you, this is funny. I was on call every second to third night for 25 years. And frequently I was in the middle of the night operating. And the radiologists were on call every 17th night. We were on call every second or third night. They were on call every 17th night. And many times they didn't have to come in when they were on call. They didn't get called. So, but when they would come in, oh, they'd cry and wail and complain and all that. Well, that's because they didn't have to do it very often. It just became a part of my life. That's just what you did. And you didn't even think about it. You just did it.
Do it.
And
Yeah.
if you have a commitment, you do it. I don't care what. You just do it unless somebody comes along and cuts your legs off or your hands off or something.
Yeah.
You don't have some good excuse like that. You just do it.
Yeah, that's funny. Okay, I have legs. Nobody cut them off. I better do it. Okay, that's a great barometer. So that's a good measurement. If you don't feel like doing something, ask yourself, do you still have legs? If the answer is yes, stick to the commitment. Right. So that okay. So yes, so Lillian, I have a relative with asthma. If you could let us know what herbs you take and if your sponsors carry them. Okay, so I use, I don't want to give you if off the air, I'm more than happy to do that. But I take 1,500 milligram pills and they're tablets of vitamin C, and they're non-GMO. And I take about maybe 6,000 milligrams. It used to be when I first started that I take 10,000 milligrams, and that I got off all my asthma medication. I was in a lot of, and I'm not saying that this is something they should do. I did this with Dr. Andrew Saul of Food Matters. He was the one during a break during the radio show. He said, you know, Lillian, I can get you off your asthma medication. And you know what? Some people say, oh, if you overdose with vitamin C, you could get an overdose. Well, an overdose with vitamin C is diarrhea.
Hard to do.
And hard to, well, you'll know because you'll get gassy and you'll get the warning, you'll get the trumpet sounding and you're going, okay, I better stop. And that's enough. It's enough to saturate your body. And then the herb that I'm taking right now is called lobelia. And lobelia is a really good herb for the body. So that has kept me, I was on asthma court, Pulmicort, rescue inhaler, steroids. I was on all of that since I was a little girl, and asthma went away at 12, but it came back with a vengeance at 24 when I was pregnant for the first time. And so that was, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And of course, I didn't deal with my emotional traumas. And so those are all things you've got. It's not just taking the vitamin C and the herbs. It's like Dr. Day says, you just don't eat vegan and all of a sudden be healthy. There's a spirit, mind, and body thing, but that's what I've done for me. I'm not saying that'll work for you, but that has worked.
Well, the first thing you have to do if you have asthma is get rid of all the dairy products.
Oh, and I did.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I don't eat wheat.
Because if people still are doing dairy products and meat and things like that, they're going to have trouble getting rid of their asthma. So you do that. You have to drink a lot of water, because one thing that makes asthma worse is dehydration, because you don't have enough fluid in your body to keep things working properly.
Yeah.
And then of course you've got to learn how to handle your stress, because stress is very dehydrating, first of all. And secondly, when it causes this adrenaline surge and all the other problems that occur when you're stressed, then you even get constriction of your bronchioles, and you just can't breathe right. So it's multifaceted. It's not just one thing. You can take some herbs, that's fine, but you've got to get rid of the other problems.
That's
because
right.
Herbs are not magic.
Yeah, that's why this conversation that we're having today and the workshop that I'm going to be doing mid-November is important, because what good is doing all the right things when your heart is not right? Yeah. What good is doing all this? It's just the action. There's got to be a transformation, and the biggest step that we can take is from the head to the heart. And that's just like a tiny little step, but that's a big step. And so that was what we're going to be talking about. And we're going to start with all the traumas and all the somebody done, somebody wrong song, all of that. We're going to start with that. And then on Saturday, do the the reflection with God and how God has made blessing from the, it's not, and I've heard this before. And so this is not me quoting myself. This is me quoting Dr. Bruce, no, not Bruce Lipton, Dr. Wayne Dyer, who said, it's not the snake bite that kills you. It's the venom that runs through your blood. And that venom we need to stop by seeing that we are causing this on ourselves. So that's going to be that. So just stay tuned for it. And I hope that all of you decide that you want to be a part of that. And hopefully that'll be a nice little entry. And Dr. Day, if you want to join us, you're welcome to join us as well. Okay. So then Linda is asking, and those of you who are saying thank you and good, and you're loving this conversation, I'm so glad you are. And then Linda is saying, is there a scripture for God gave us our baggage? Is there a scripture for God gave us our baggage? I am talking at a small women's group tomorrow for the first time ever, and this really spoke to me. Okay.
Well, the one that says we've all got baggage, it says all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Mm-hmm. Everybody is a sinner. So there are no perfect parents. So you can, the Bible doesn't use the word baggage, although there is a text where the Bible uses the word stuff, which I thought is interesting, about all your stuff. Mm-hmm. But the Bible doesn't use the word that there are no perfect parents and we all raised with baggage, but it says all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Mm-hmm. When Adam sinned, he passed death onto the human race. When he sinned, he passed death onto the human race. And it is that we're dying, is that we're separated from God. That's why we're dying. And so he didn't pass sin on, he passed death on. And because we're dying and separated from God, then we are sinners. And the whole cause, the only reason that we're on this earth is to get past that and get back to God and become one with God. So he has put his character and disposition in our life, and he's making every decision in our life. And when he is, we will no longer sin. So that is the reason for this life. And he's taking us through everything we need to go through. Some will make it through this time, and some will be back to make it through the next time, but everybody's eventually going to get there. And that's why I say I'd rather do it now rather than later.
Yeah. And you know what, Dr. Day, that is such good news. It is such good news, because we worry about our children. We worry about our family, our friends. We worry about things, maybe ourselves even. And this is so nice that to be able to say, what the heck am I worrying about when God is in control? Right. I can act accordingly. I can act and just do things that I need to do. Right. And do it with a loving heart.
Occasionally I'll talk to somebody who's suicidal too. And and you may think this is harsh, but I say to them, look, you're going to be back. You commit suicide to try to get rid of these problems now, you'll be back. You'll be back and you'll have all the same problems. You're going to have to deal with them then. Why don't you just deal with them now?
Absolutely. I'll say amen to that. So here's a twist from Nancy. So Nancy says, use that anger to propel you to solve problems. There's a difference between using anger for promotion and using anger because everything, even guilt, shame, and envy have been used in the Bible for good. Right, Dr. Day? Would you like to talk about?
Well, yeah. In fact, if you look at the patriarchs and prophets, they were all sinners, but God used that sin to bring them humility and to put them on a different path. Mm-hmm. And that's what God does with all of us. So, if you've been a sinner in the past, great, because then you're propelled in a different path, we hope. So the thing is, that's the way we get there, is we have to get far enough down that we recognize our need for Jesus Christ to run our life. So that's why God introduced sin, to actually eventually turn us to him. And so you suppose you have, there are many instances of people who are drug addicts and they had to get so far down till they really recognized they needed Christ to run their life. And so not every drug addict learns that before they die, but then they'll be back and they'll still have the problem, but there won't be any drugs around and they're going to have to go cold turkey. And they're going to have to learn how to do it then. So the whole point is, the verse is, all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. That's where
I
it
love
is.
that. And where is that? What is the scripture verse? Do you have it off the top of your head?
No, I don't have it off the top of my head. But
We can just look it up. Yeah, we can look it up.
Yeah.
Not a problem. Okay, so Dr. Day, we got Dancing Kay. She's so excited that she needed to hear this today and is sending blessing. Harboring anger over the past need to be released. And so obviously this is triggering something to release some of this anger. And I want to say also, I coached somebody who was punched in the stomach by someone. It was a stepmother, and she was punched in the stomach, and that punching was the straw that broke the camel's back, and she went ballistic. And when she did that, she got some stuff done. She used that, but here's what happened to her. She used that anger, that same kind of energy that started from that punch in the gut. And this was a literal punch in the gut. It wasn't like Dr. Day when she pokes me in the eye. So, and every time there was a crisis in her life, she would go into this maniac, raging lunatic that got things done. Didn't support her, and it caused people to be upset with her but she thought she was just getting things done. The reality was she was not using that anger well. She was misusing it. And so, yes, you can use anger to move you towards resolution and taking action. But if you do it out of anger, with anger, you are not going to be as effective as if you do it out of love or knowing that it's the right thing to do. Dr. Day, I see you shaking your head.
That's right. The thing is, when I think now about how I used to be, and I used to get mad at a lot of things that people get mad at. They weren't,
justifiable.
Justifiable anger. But it's so great not to have to do that anymore. You just say, just let it roll off your back, and it doesn't matter. You just let it go and say, oh, that poor person, they're, harming themselves by doing that. And you just move on. You don't have to respond to those kinds of things in any way, even in your brain. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Part of it is from learning to know God, and part of it is from living a long time. After a while, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just let it go.
Let it go.
Somebody doesn't like you, somebody says nasty things about you. Okay. But you just keep moving.
Well, here's a shift to that, Dr. Day. When somebody says something to me that is hateful or mean-spirited, or they're saying things that I am this and I am that, really what they are doing is revealing their heart.
Right.
They are telling me who they are. And you see in others who you are.
That's right.
And so when you shift that around, maybe you are those things, but the person who's saying it is recognizing it in you because they are that way too. Right. So it doesn't help you to say, well, you are that way too, which is something that I would resort to do in the past. And sometimes maybe even now it's like, what are you calling me, black kettle? But the reality is, that's a lesson in that person's heart. And when they're gossiping about somebody else and they're telling you about them, there's a difference between telling you about someone because you need to resolve it and you're looking for a way to release it versus gossip. And I want to tell you about somebody just because I want to ruin their reputation. They are telling you about them. So just be forewarned. Okay, so we've got 2 more questions before we go, Dr. Day. So one of them is from Lean Mean Mulching Machine. Okay, she says, what would you say to someone who insists that Satan isn't real?
Well, I don't try to convince people of what they don't want.
Good answer.
Yeah. If they don't want to believe that Satan is real, it doesn't bother me. Satan is real. What I frequently say, well, the Rothschilds believe he's real. They worship him, and they're trillionaires. And George Soros believes in that, and so does Rockefeller. They believe Satan's real because they worship him. So the thing is, if you don't want to believe Satan is real, it doesn't bother me, but eventually you will understand that he is. But if you don't want to believe that now, it's okay. I don't try to convince people against their will, just like we talked about the other day. You try to convince people against their will, they're of the same opinion still. It doesn't change them. And like one philosopher said, don't try to teach a pig how to sing. It irritates you and annoys the heck out of the pig. So just, don't try to do that. It's just not worth it. If people want to know truth and they come to you and say, share truth with me, or ask you a question that they really want to know, I have gone way past trying to convince people against their will. Don't do that.
Yeah, I know. And it's in our nature to want to save everybody. But when we step back and say, you know what? I don't need to save anybody.
No.
I don't need to save anybody. God's doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So Mary, okay, I'm going to add one more question. That's it. No more. There's another question on YouTube that I promised I was going to get to, but is it okay to eat cheese and eggs since an animal does not have to die? Aren't these foods good for a diabetic since what? Aren't these foods good for a diabetic since they don't? And there's nothing else.
The thing is that cows are very diseased now. Animal products, there's as Lillian and I have discussed, we're the only animal that drinks the milk from another animal.
Yes.
And other animals don't drink milk from another animal. If you ever had a cow come up to your door and say they need some mother's milk for their calf, this doesn't happen. And so we don't need that, and we don't need milk after we weaned. You can drink almond milk, you can drink rice milk. They're very good, and they're made, you can get them organic, and they're made from vegetables and nuts and fruits. So the whole point is you don't need those. And animals, you're drinking the animals' hormones, and the cheese, you're eating the animals' hormones, and all this bad stuff they're giving to animals.
There's pus in cheese.
Pus in cheese. So
antibiotics.
Yeah. So you don't need that. And the thing is that they don't grow in the garden. Just eat the stuff that grows in the garden, and then you'll be fine.
Okay. Last question, Dr. Day. This is a marathon. I'm probably going to do the Q&A in a separate video. Okay. Everything's going to upload together, but I'm going to do a separate Q&A video if people just want to go to the Q&A, because people love to hear what you have to say. Excuse me. It says from Nirvacho. Dr. Day, do you think as many true Christians believe that Trump is Satan in flesh? Oh,
first of all, how do you know a true Christian is a true Christian? If they're a true Christian, they're not going to think anybody is Satan in the flesh. They will have a different heart from that. Secondly, Trump is Trump. Trump has, I think he has some redeeming qualities.
Yeah.
If you don't like him, that's fine, but you don't have to, disparage him. I'm not a big fan of some of the people who run. The president has already been picked. He's been picked years ago. The voting is just for people to think that they have some hand in who runs their government, but we don't. It is all faked. It is all faked. I can tell you that for sure. All the voting machines can be manipulated by remote control. I have absolute evidence for that. I haven't voted in 30 years, ever since I found out all of this. So,
but we're not saying not to vote. We're not saying not to vote, because I'm voting.
Not to vote. I'm saying I don't vote.
I know.
Okay. So
I want people to know that you're not saying that to them, because people.
But I am going to say to you, your vote doesn't count. I am going to say that to you because I know that for sure. Trump doesn't run the country. The president has never run the country since Kennedy. And look what they did to him when he tried to run the country. All right. Mm-hmm. So all of the directions for the president come from the Rothschilds in the city of London, through the Council on Foreign Relations, and to the president. And if he doesn't do them now, their fight Trump is Jewish. He'll fight with the other Jews. The real name was Drumpf, Drumpf. And so the thing is that they'll fight with each other. But the point is that the president doesn't make the final decisions on anything of importance anyway. The Rothschilds do. They own the money supply of America through the Federal Reserve. They're going to cause it to crash probably this coming year, 2021, and there's going to be a depression like you've never seen before, and that is planned. And so before Obama was elected, 20 years before Obama was elected, it was planned.
Yeah, I'm trying to find your book.
Elected, right? So the point is that the president has already been picked, whether it's going to be Trump or Biden or Harris or Hillary Clinton. You know, they got it all orchestrated, and they know exactly how it's going to go. So you can vote all you want. I'm not saying don't vote. I'm saying your vote doesn't count, because this is all nothing but a sham. That's what it is.
Well, it's a distraction. It's a distraction right now, because we're involved in the fight. We're involved with the fight and fighting with one another. And I started a group called I Am 99. And I Am 99 came from a revelation I had in the morning that I was like, how can the 1% of the 1% control 99% of the people? And so I started thinking, okay, first, well, there's division, Christian Jews. Who killed God? Who killed Jesus? The Christians are the Jews, the Romans are, and then there's the fighting between the 99% turned into 49%, and then black and white, and there's fighting with the blacks and whites and all the different denominations, all distractions. And now we're down to 25%, and now there's like gays and straights. I know we're going to fight and the gay rights and all the transgender rights, and we're all fighting amongst ourselves. Now we're down to 12%, and we can keep going on and on. Mask wearers.
It's all programmed.
That's right. Mask wearers, non-mask wear. Let's go down the list. I mean, we could talk about people who, are Republican, Democrat, Libertarian. Let's go religion. Let's keep it down. Now we're at 1%. Now we're at 0.05%. You keep diluting, and we're doing the fighting. Enough of the fighting. So it's called I Am 99. It's a Facebook group that we're going to focus on freedom and praying. Now we're praying to God, and we started the study from that. It's being right with God. I was telling Dr. Day that I was asked a question. I was being interviewed by John in a radio station in Colorado, and he asked the question about the COVID-19, and I said, this is not about COVID and wearing a mask or a flu or a vaccine or whatever. This is about getting right with God. Mm-hmm. Let's end all the distraction. Let's get our head together here. We need to be right with God. That's what it tells me, Dr. Day. I mean,
of course. And the thing is that God has allowed every type of politics to rule. We've had aristocracies, we've had communism, we have socialism, we have democracy, we have
division.
What God is showing us is that none of them work. None of them work. The only one that works is if God rules our life. Mm-hmm. You can try any kind of government, it always goes bad. Mm-hmm. You see, if Old Testament Israel, again, the Israelites were worshipers of the true God, and so God was their king for a time. He brought them through the wilderness, and he was the king. And then they came and said, we want a king like all the other nations. And Samuel at that time was the judge, and God worked through Samuel, but God was really their king. And they said, no, we want a king like all the others. And God says, and Samuel was very distraught. He said, they have rejected me. And God said, no, they haven't rejected you. They've rejected me. They rejected me. They want a human king like all the other nations. And so God at first gave them King Saul, and that turned out to be a disaster. And then he chose King David, who was his king. But the thing is, it still went bad. King David's offspring eventually all went bad. And so God is trying to show us that no type of government that's run by man works.
Yes.
None of it works. Look, we started out as a supposed Christian nation 250 years ago. 250 years. How's it turned out? Not very well. Look where we are now. And that's how they'll all turn out unless God is running everything. So that's why God allowed sin in the world to show us how evil sin can get. And then we'll say, we don't want that anymore. And that's the only way that we'll be safe for eternity is as everybody said, I don't want that. And that's what this is all about.
And we will be saved when everyone is good enough to, what was it? What is it that you say? We will, when everybody's good to save, we will be saved.
We are safe to, we are only safe to save when the salvation of everyone in the world is as important to us as our own.
Yeah. I love that. And with that, we're going to leave that because it's getting to be almost 7 o'clock and I'm sure Robert's going, okay, honey. Me wants to eat some salad. We got some tacos. We got some Mexican salad today. Dr. Day. And when I say Mexican, I'm talking about black beans and corn and onions and salsa and some great, it's already got it ready. Oh, he's probably putting it together, but I'm excited today, Dr. Day, that you are such a wealth of wisdom and that you walk the walk and talk the talk. You don't just talk, you do walk it. So thank you so much. And for those of you who are still hanging on to every word Dr. Day says, thank you so much for joining us today. If something we said touched your heart or something that, share it with your friends. Make sure that the classroom continues to grow because people aren't getting notified anymore. So please be the messengers out there, letting them know that there is a place where they can go to when they need a friend. And please, if you haven't joined us in the Bible study, we have recorded every single one and you'll catch up to week 9. That will be on Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Dr. Day, you are truly a busy woman, and to have you with us today for this long is such a treat. So thank you so much for everything you do.
Thank you so much.
Okay, guys, go and start reading your Bibles and start making some commitments to be committed to the commitment instead of the feeling. We'll see you soon.